Across Mundus, the pattern is consistent enough to be recorded without debate. Civilizations do not keep the most accurate explanations. They keep the ones people can continue living with. This is not easiest to see in theory. It is easier to see in the life of a single idea. In the ash valley of the mortal vale, a saying first appeared during a period of instability. A name must not be broken. At the time, it did not refer to identity. It did not refer to honor in any abstract sense. It meant something specific. If a person gave their word, especially in uncertain conditions, they did not change it, even if circumstances shifted. Because the valley was unstable, storms altered routes overnight, landmarks disappeared, alliances formed quickly and dissolved just as fast. In that environment, coordination depended on one condition. If someone committed to an action, that commitment would hold. Not because it was moral, but because without it, people could not act together at all. At that stage, the idea existed within a narrow set of conditions. It was used by people who understood exactly why it existed. But the moment the saying spread beyond crisis, something changed. It entered conversation, repetition, and habit. And as it moved, it passed through people who forgot parts of it, simplified what they could not carry, and adjusted it to fit their own situations. The question was no longer, why does this rule exist? It became, can this be relied on? The first change happened in memory. People did not retain the conditions that made the rule necessary. They retained the part that was easy to carry. A person does not go back on their word. The instability that gave it meaning faded. The phrasing remained. Over time, the idea became shorter, clearer, and less precise, not by decision, but because that is what memory allows. As the valley stabilized, the saying spread further. It moved into trade, agreements, and leadership. Now it allowed something new. People could trust across distance. Plans could extend beyond immediate survival. Coordination could persist over time. But something subtle had already changed. Originally, the rule existed because conditions were unstable. Now it was treated as a quality of the person who followed it. The idea had shifted from condition to character. As conditions continued to improve, strain began to appear. People encountered situations where new information appeared after decisions were made, better options became available, and existing agreements became harmful. But the saying remained unchanged. A name must not be broken. So people followed through on decisions that no longer made sense. At first, this was admired. Then it became costly. When an idea begins to interfere with action, it does not disappear. It adjusts. Quietly, without declaration, people began to change how they used it. The wording stayed the same. The meaning moved. Instead of never change your word, it became do not betray trust. This allowed agreements to be revised as long as coordination between people remained intact. The idea lost precision, but it regained usefulness. As it continued to be used, repetition changed it further. Exceptions appeared, shortcuts formed, understanding gave way to habit. People no longer asked, why does this exist? They relied on, this is how it's done. And because the idea could survive that shift, it remained. Eventually, it was formalized. It became law. Binding declarations must be upheld or formally released. Now the system no longer depended on personal rigidity. It depended on procedure, witnesses, release mechanisms, and structured revision. The original condition had been replaced entirely. But the language still referred to the old saying. People believed they were preserving it. They were not. Centuries later, it shifted again. Children were taught, to break your name is to lose who you are. Now the idea had become moral, personal, and tied to identity. It was used to enforce loyalty, define character, and judge others. Almost no one remembered that it had once existed to solve a coordination problem under instability. Then the valley changed again. The black ash years began. Routes collapsed. Communication failed. Local decisions had to be made quickly. The original problem returned, uncertainty. But the idea had been reshaped over generations. People hesitated. They delayed decisions to remain consistent. They followed through on commitments that no longer fit. Coordination slowed, and this time, the idea worked against survival. In some regions, a new interpretation emerged. A name is not broken when it is corrected in time. This felt like betrayal. But it allowed something the older form no longer could: adjustment under pressure. Groups that adopted it responded faster, coordinated better, and survived more often. After the crisis, the saying still existed, a name must not be broken. But across the Confederacy, it no longer meant one thing. In practice, it had become a rule about trust, a legal structure, a moral identity, and in some places, a flexible principle, all using the same words. The pattern is clear. An idea does not survive by remaining true to its original meaning. It survives by being reshaped at each stage to match what people can carry, share, and use. When it becomes too rigid, it is reinterpreted. When it becomes too complex, it is simplified. When conditions change, its function shifts, not to preserve its origin, but to preserve coordination. Across the mortal veil, ideas endure not because they remain intact, but because they continue to function as they are remembered imperfectly, shared unevenly, and used to act under changing conditions. The words may remain, but the meaning moves. And what survives is not the original idea, it is the version people can continue to live with.